Real people, real radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. We are broadcasting from truthfrequencyradio.com, and I'm your host, David Whitehead. And I am coming at you live from Toronto, Canada. And today it is Sunday, February 22nd, 2015. And tonight on the show, I am going to be bringing on Hross from Switzerland. He's actually a political prisoner in Switzerland, and we're going to be discussing the Templar banking fraternities that operate out of Octagon, Switzerland. He is most famous on YouTube for making the video or the series, The Pharaoh Show, and he brings the lineages and the symbolism all the way back to the dynasties in Egypt. And we are going to be discussing essentially how the world is really structured and who's running the show as he sees it, and the information that he has to bring forward. He's got some fantastic videos on YouTube that you can look up. As I said, if you just put in The Pharaoh Show, you can find those videos there. Also, The World's Most Dangerous Mafia and Octagon, the Empire of Darkness. And Octagon is spelled O-C-T-O-G-O-N. Octagon, the Empire of Darkness. And before the show gets started, I've found a quote that I found to be pretty relevant to tonight's conversation, in my opinion, especially when we're talking about these kinds of subjects and trying to share this information to people. It seems like a lot of times they just look at you sideways. They've never heard of these types of terms. They've never heard of these types of, or this type of information. So they're unaware that this is something that is a valid form of research and that there's all kinds of information out there that they should be aware of. And so this one comes from Bruce Lee, and he says, "Those who are unaware they are walking in darkness will never seek the light." And I think it's a perfect quote. It's a perfect quote for this show as well, because in order to find the solutions to all of these problems that we face, or to try to find any semblance of knowledge in any subject or any truth in any subject, you have to get rid of what's blinding you. You have to remove that which is blocking you from getting to that new understanding or achieving any kind of balance. So I think it's a unique martial art principle. It is universal, however, this application that we can apply to going down these roads, asking these questions. And I think it's important. We live in the time of all kinds of chaos and corruption being exposed in the world, but at the same time, that's a good sign. That's a sign that we are waking up and we are looking for the solutions, and we're fed up with being told what to do, what to think, how to feel, and how to behave, and we're trying to carve out our own destinies. So that's what we're going to be looking for here tonight on the show, ladies and gentlemen. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on my guest, Hross, to the program. Sean, thank you so much, my friend. You're calling at a very late hour from Switzerland, and I greatly appreciate you taking the time with me today. Welcome to Truth Warrior, my friend.
Hi, Dave. I'm actually a South African. I'm just living in Switzerland here. And I would like to say just one thing about Bruce Lee. There's one thing not many people know, that his grandmother was German. So he was like 75% Chinese and the rest German.
Really?
Yeah. And there's another, well, you can see it. He's not really Chinese like Chinese, and he's a bit stronger, the body and everything. Maybe that's why he was also attracted to a white woman. I think she was of Swedish descent. And yeah, well, we all know they murdered him, and they even murdered his son, Brendan.
That's right. Yeah. Both in film.
Yeah. Brendan, they put these. They said, "Well, we put blanks in the pistol, blanks, and they put real bullet in it, and they shot him." It was like that, wasn't it?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and about the philosophy of being a warrior, I wrote a text and I made a video about it. It's called Warrior versus VS Soldier. I mean, like a warrior, a warrior protects women and children. A soldier kills them if he gets the order to. And a warrior doesn't obey any general. He just obeys his own conscience, and a soldier just obeys orders and etc. I think I already sent you the PDF, or I will send it to you again.
No, I do have it right up in front of me, and I was actually going to commend you on it. This is exactly the kind of information that I've been trying to bring forward. I've been studying martial arts my entire life, both in the physical dojos and also in the books, and trying to get as much of this piece together, this philosophy, which in my opinion has been falsely it's been misrepresented completely in the media and in a lot of books and even in modern day dojos today. So I think that the way you wrote this, the warrior versus the soldier, I've been saying forever, even soldier is referencing someone who fights for pay, someone who's paid to essentially be a mercenary for hire. And who hires soldiers? Well, of course, it's these different elites and kings and queens and rulers and governments that are out there trying to, go out and take over land, area, and people. So whereas the warrior, as you said, and it's brilliantly put in this PDF, is someone that does follow their own conscience. They stand for a moral principle. They stand up for their communities, for their families, for what's right. And I know it sounds cliche, but that's truly what we all really need to be doing today, right?
Yeah. So maybe I don't know if it's possible. So if anybody wants to have the PDF, maybe you can send it to them, or otherwise I can do it as well if you put my email on it. And in Europe, actually, those soldiers. Well, the word soldier is actually coming from the word salt, sel, in French, because salt was more expensive than gold, like in the Middle Ages and before. So the mercenaries, they were paid in salt, and that's where the word soldier is coming from, actually, etymologically. And,
it's interesting too. You brought that up because I also found, I guess it would be a latter, like another translation for it, which from Latin it means solde, which was referencing a gold coin from the latter Roman Empire. So either way, salt, gold, so selling out basically. That's sort of where the origination of that word comes from.
Well, in France, they still, or in Quebec probably, they still use the name solde for sales, like after Christmas when the prices go down, it's solde.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, and probably the same in Quebec. And those mercenaries or soldiers in Europe, they were mostly Swiss. They were the killers for the Pope, and that's why we still have the Pope's Guard, the Swiss Guard. And in the Middle Ages, there were hundreds of thousands of them. And so the Swiss, traditionally in Europe, they were the killers for the kings and queens, for the nobility, and the killers for the Pope. And of course, the Pope and the aristocracy, they always went hand in hand. And I made this film about it, which is one of my favorites. It's called Pharohsocracy. Not aristocracy, but with a PH in front of it. It's Pharohsocracy. And the pharaohs, they never disappeared. It's that's why it says in the Bible, the pharaoh and its army, they disappeared in the sea. But of course, the sea never opened. It's symbolic. It means the Pharaoh and its army disappeared in the sea of peoples. They are amongst us. This is a thing which is used in language, the sea of peoples. And it's them who became the aristocracy. And if you look at the word aristocracy, if I translate it into Pharaonic, it's a language I studied. I studied history at the university and all that. So in Demotic, which is the written Pharaonic language, because the hieroglyphs are only for the priests and the temples, and if there were any writers, they did it in Demotic. It looks a bit like Arabic, Well, it's completely different, but visually it looks like Arabic, or like Coca-Cola, this round letters like. And if I look at the word aristocracy and aristocracy, it means big or pregnant. And if a woman is pregnant, she's quite big. And Ri is the word for the sun, like the sun god Re or Ra. And Ari, like in aristocracy, or in Aryan, which is actually the same. It means it means born, pregnant sun. So born out of the sun. So they came from beyond the sun. They're probably not from here. And actually, if you look at the human being, you know, we're not from here either. We are not adapted to this planet at all. I mean, we have no fur. We have to dress, you know, and put clothes on and a blanket, even in summertime. Otherwise, we're cold and freeze. We have to cook and boil and fry everything we eat. Otherwise, our fragile aliens' digestive systems can't digest it. And we have to put on shoes, otherwise we hurt our alien feet. So we're not at all adapted to this planet, and there's no evolution either. Otherwise we would be more adapted, but we are not. We're definitely not from here.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on that, Sean. I mean, I've always wondered why we stood out so much. I mean, we have the capacity to be brilliant, artistic, compassionate, creative, you know, so many different things, but then also we have the capacity for destruction and this penchant for war and murder and violence and all these negative qualities. And it's interesting because I was studying even some of the Aboriginal mythos, and some of their writings refer to the human as a twofold being, where they would say, you know, half the being comes from the earth and the other half comes from the sky. And so, I don't know, it's just interesting when you go through the mythology, you see a lot of references to, you know, gods coming from the sky and mating with women of earth. And, you know, there's an obsession in the royal bloodlines and the elite bloodlines of preserving the bloodline. I mean, that's why they walk on the red carpet and they're demonstrating that they come from the bloodline, that they have a divine right to rule, etc. And so there seems to be some very interesting things about our origins as a species that are still up for question, but maybe looking at things in this light might help to answer that.
Yeah, or nearer to you, what the American natives say: a man has two wolves inside, and one is hatred, and one is love, or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. There was like that story where they were saying, an elder was talking to a young person and saying that, you know, inside of all of us we have two wolves. One is the hatred, the anger, the greed, and the other one is love, compassion, and creation. And yet these wolves are at war with each other. And the little boy asked the elder, well, which wolf wins the fight? And the elder says, well, it's the one you feed. I always like that story.
But hatred can be love as well. You know, if you hate evil, that's pure love. If you hate like a Mr. Hitler, I mean, or, you know, the Nazis or Stalin and all these buggers, you know, that's pure love. And actually, we need more of this kind of hatred in the world. People who sacrifice themselves. And in all these wars, it was always the young people who were sacrificed, you know, and their parents saw their offspring die, you know, 17-year-old soldiers, 18-year-old soldiers, and which is not the natural way of things. It's as mammals, a mammal defends his offspring and his young ones. So we, the older ones, I mean, I'm 52, we should make a sacrifice for our offspring and get together and like do something. And to come back to the Pharaohs, so the Pharaohs became the aristocracy, which we find back in the word Ari, like in aristocracy, and which is purely pharaonic. So there is a link there, which is a proof. And in the Middle Ages, everything belonged to them. You know, the earth, the power, the wealth, even our houses, our cattle, even our women, because they had the thing called the prime noctis, or the first right, in French, le droit du seigneur, or le droit du cuissage. So at the first night of the wedding, you had to give up your wife, and she was being shagged, you know, at the castle by the Lord. And well, she came back, you know, and had a nice breakfast in the morning and a bath. It's a sort of and well, nicely oiled, if you know what I mean. She came back, and this is why actually now with the genetic analysis and everything, we have found out now that so many Europeans, a very large percentage, they have pharaonic genetics, and people have been asking themselves, well, how the hell is this possible? Especially in Switzerland. Most of the Swiss, it's been found out by a genetics laboratory, which is called IGNEA, and they found out that I don't know, 70 or 80% of the Swiss they have pharaonic genetics, and this of course is through the Prime Noctis, which was all over Europe, but really 100% in Switzerland. That you had to, your wife was going to be picked up by the soldiers, the knights, who are of course the police today. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, you got her back in the morning, nicely washed, and she had a breakfast, which is also a sort of a immaculate conception in a way.
Yeah, it's like a ritual,
very
isn't
clean.
it?
She came back. Excuse me?
I was just saying, yeah, it's very much like a ritual of some kind.
Yeah, it's a ritual. So the immaculate conception, somewhere in the Bible and everything, it's also related to the Prime Noctis in a way, and in many more ways, which I explain in this video, Pharaohsocracy. And of course, there were too many revolutions going on in France and in Russia. The aristocracy, they were these horrible tsars in Russia, and Louis XIV in France. There was celebrating in Moscow or in Paris, and the people were starving. The children were dying. And of course there was a revolution, which was of course very quickly taken over by Freemasonry and by the establishment again. But that's led to them going sort of underground, because they are afraid of us, that we do another revolution or stand up. And this is also why they keep chaos, like Ordo ab Chaos, the system of the Freemasons. They keep us in constant problems, so we won't stand up, and all these races together. I'm not against it, but of course there's an idea, a real Machiavellic idea behind it, that, so many races and religions together, of course there are frictions. And people here in Europe, they say, well, the Turk, next door you got a Mercedes. And people think of that instead of thinking, well, the Mr. President, it's not good what he's doing. So and there's also another reason that they started to hide in Freemasonry. Which is the New World Order, as we know. And logically, if there is a New World Order, there must also be an Old World Order. And the Old World Order is, of course, the feudal system of the kings and queens and everything. Because the kings and the lords of the castles, the dukes and the earls, they were constantly fighting with each other, and every time the castle was destroyed and people died and they lost, they lost lives, and so after hundreds of years of fighting over a piece of land and a castle, they came together and said, well, we can't go on like this. We need a new system, because every time we destroy everything and we can't concentrate on science and other things and really consolidating our power when we're fighting amongst each other like this. And they say, well, we need a new system that everybody can be the king. And of course, there were more and more pharaohs. Of course, in the beginning, they didn't have so much descent. And also because of the incest, they had problems of making children. A lot of children died, after 2 or 3 days. We have found small sarcophages and all this. And later on it went better when mixing with other peoples in Europe, and of course the Jews, they were the first one they mixed with. And And they said, well, we need a new system now because there were wars going on, and everyone wants to be the king, and there was a lot of backstabbing and killing of kings, and then the prince wants to be the king, and of course in the aristocracy it's only the first son, as the pharaohs and the aristocracy, it's only the first son who gets the castle and the power. And the second or the third son or girls, they didn't get anything at all. And so they got really upset, and there was a lot of fighting and wars going on about this. And they came together and they said, well, we need a new system. And the new system is that everyone can be the king for a period of 4 years. And this is how democracy got born. And then they said, well, no, we can't do this, because we all understand, well, we can't vote, among each other because nobody is impartial. And then one of them said, well, we let those stupid animals, the people, we let them vote. They don't understand anything. We make a little circus out of it, with a lot of, with a party and a lot of celebrating with some music, And this is how democracy, demos, is the people, and democracy of the rule of the people. But of course the people don't rule. If you look at the United States, they got a two-party system. It's all the same. They're all pharaohs, and they're all related to some British king, and all the kings, of course, they are pharaohs.
It's funny, they have the symbol of the eagle right there, and it's got the two wings. That's why they say you've got a left wing and a right wing. But it's still attached to the same brain, the same bird, which is always historically and presently now in America is run behind the scenes. I mean, they put these politicians out there for people to feel like they have a say, but really we know that, like you said, no matter who gets in power, the same kind of legislation and the same agenda gets carried forward, right?
That's interesting how you put it, with the two wings and this one head. Very nice, huh? Oh yeah, of course. But so in the new system, so first the pharaohs, then the old world order of the aristocracy, and now the new world order of Freemasonry. This is what we are living, actually, and this is what happened. And Switzerland played a very predominant role in it, because the last of the Crusades was which I explained in the Pharaoh show, was in 1291. And the last stronghold of the Templars was Aachen, which lies in the north of Israel now, just right at the Lebanese border. There's a lot of turmoil there now. And Aachen fell on May 18th. It's called Saint-Jean d'Acre in French. So Saint-Jean d'Acre fell on May 18th, 1291. Only 2.5 months later, the time to get back on horseback or walk, they founded Switzerland on August the 1st, 1291, which is their national holiday, like the 4th of July in Switzerland. It's August the 1st, and 1291 is being used by neo-Nazis. If you punch 1291 in it, well, there's a lot of Swiss neo-Nazis popping out, and they've been killing Europeans and for hundreds of, well, 1,000 years maybe. So for the Pope and for the kings, and of course the Pope and the kings, it's all the same thing. The Pope is just the religious wing, and then they have a financial wing, which is the Swiss banks, and they have a military wing, which are the Templars, and they have a media wing. Again, wings. Well,
the wings, yeah, exactly. Here, let's pause there for a moment, Sean. We're going to go to our first break of the show. Great way to get warmed up. We're going to get back into the history of Switzerland and what's going on there behind the scenes. Ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking tonight with Sean Hross. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back here on Truth Warrior in just a few minutes.
Yeah, we got warmed up by flapping our wings, huh?
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Down the rabbit hole with Popeye, Tuesday through Friday on Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, friends. You're tuned into Truth Warrior. My name is David Whitehead. We're broadcasting live from truthfrequencyradio.com, and we are speaking tonight to Sean Hross from Switzerland, and we're having an exciting warm-up conversation, getting our wings flapping in the beginning there, trying to talk about how the power structure really works, what's going on behind the scenes. And Sean brings some very valuable information forward about the history of Switzerland, going all the way back to the Pharaonic dynasties, connecting in the royal bloodlines and the elite ruling classes, as well as the banking fraternities that run the world. So we're going to basically be getting into all of that here with Sean. So Sean, we got cut off by the break there. You were just talking about historically how some of this was breaking down. Why don't you go ahead and continue talking about Switzerland and its role in history?
Yeah, first another thing, as you which fits, which relates into it, as you were talking about Bruce Lee, is an interesting thing. Of course, there's this intrinsic energy in the body, which the martial artists talk about, and which is very important, which is the ki, K-I, or the chi in Japanese. Well, let me tell you that the word ki is from the Pharaonic ka. They also had martial arts, and everything, our whole civilization is from the pharaohs, believe me. And the word ki is from the Pharaonic ka, which is the life energy inside the and also the soul. When we live and when we die, the soul becomes the ba. So when we live, it's the ka, and this is the very same thing as the Japanese ki, which Chinese call chi, and. Yeah, and the word ka is often used in names. Like when the word ka is being used, it means this is where our souls will live or are living, like in Canada, or like in Jamaica, or Corsica, or Kazakhstan, or Chicago, or America. And if I translate the word America, which I explain in the Pharaoh show, they say the word America is from Amerigo Vespucci. That's the guy who discovered the Americas after Columbus. And but you don't call a name of a street or a country after one's first name. You use the surname, so it should be the United States of Vespucci, because this guy, his name was Amerigo Vespucci. So this is how we know that the name America is not from Amerigo Vespucci. They're lying to us as usual. Well, let me tell you what it is. If I translate the word, the syllables America, it's pure Pharaonic. As I told you in Ari, as in aristocracy, that the A is big or pregnant. Mer or meru is the word for pyramid. And ri is the word for the sun, and ka is the soul. So if you read the word America from right to left, as they write things down there, it means the reincarnation of the big pyramids will take place where a soul can live. And if you look at the dollar, well, there she is, the big pyramid of the... and so...
and it even says on the dollar bill there, our enterprise has become a success, right? Or... the discussion in Latin, I can't remember the exact term it is, but it was referring to an enterprise or something becoming successful. And what was becoming successful is not what people usually think when they look at history. They think, oh, America won its freedom from the King George and the British Crown. But really, there was a more successful enterprise that was put into place to be a much more updated version of how to control populations.
Yeah, and the Novus Ordo Seclorum, and this it's interesting. When I went filming at Omaha Beach, and there was this huge American style concrete and marble monument in a U form, and most people they went, of course, inside. There was sort of a lizard. I don't know what it was. And outside the wall, under a tree, it was really hidden. There was the seal as on the dollar, with the pyramid and the all-seeing eye and the New World Order, really big and engraved in the wall, and nobody saw it. So I filmed it and I put it in a film which is called "No More Wars: Fight the Enemy Within." And when I went to the other side of the wall, outside again, under a tree, completely hidden, there was the seal of the United States, this eagle again with the wings and everything, And where the eagle has its claws, it says very, very clearly, it shows 666. And of course, D-Day was on June 6th, and June is the 6th month, and it was at 6 o'clock, and that makes 666. And the interesting thing was as well that it was all in a sun hieroglyph, which I explained that in the Pharohs show. The sun hieroglyph is one of the lesser known symbols the enemy within uses. They always put it like in the Middle Ages because they're so mixed with us. They didn't know anymore who was of Pharaonic descent and who not anymore. Now, of course, they have Freemason temples, lodges, so they know who's who, you know. And one of the ways, and we have the telephone and the internet, so, but in the Middle Ages they didn't have it all, so they put secret symbols on the fronts of their houses, which are still there, and they still use it. Not so much anymore in stone, carved in stone, not so much anymore, or at the fronts of our houses. Now I even found it in plastic packages in the supermarket, and I filmed it and I put in some of my videos, and of course in logos of enterprises who mostly are Pharaonic. I mean, we are the slaves and they are our masters, and all business belongs to them. So coming back to the 666, there was a. They used to put all these symbols in the Middle Ages, and that meant, you know, like if there's an army passing by, like with Swiss mercenaries, you know, killing everybody, and that meant, well, this house, which is carrying this symbol, well, don't kill all the people and don't destroy the house, and you can get a cup of coffee here, or whatever, or beer. People used to drink more beer in those days. And, well, you can kill all the Europeans, all the French or English next door. That's no problem. And this is how they organized, and they still use it in the Second World War. So there was on the ground at the American cemetery at Omaha Beach in France, in Normandy. There was this big, a huge sun hieroglyph of the pharaohs on the ground, in the grass. In the middle, there was a temple. And on one side, there was this commemoration with the pyramid as on the dollar and the 666. And on the other side, there were two huge granite statues. One of Isis with Horus, with a falcon in her hands. And next to her was La Marianne, which is the French Isis, and she is having the rooster, le coq français, in her hands, which is of course the very same thing. And Isis, in fact, she was a pharaonic goddess, and she was pregnant with her husband Osiris. And then came Osiris' brother, but not his real brother, more like a brother, like men should be brothers and friends. And his name was Seth, or Set-on, you know, like Satan, actually. And Seth or Set-on, he's also the lord of the underworld, of darkness, just as our Satan, which is, of course, the same character. And Seth, he said to Isis, well, listen, Isis, you're pregnant. You know, if we just, you know, I can do it for you. Let's kill your husband, Osiris. And then you can raise your child as you want. You know, there will no more influence from his father, no more traditions from his father handed down to his son. And you can make a garden gnome out of him, or a soldier. He will be always listening to you, take all your orders. And this is why they put it on this statue of Isis on the cemetery of Omaha Beach. So all the men die, you know, and they leave women behind who could raise all their children, you know, after the like in the New World Order, you know, not anymore after the image of God, you like, but after the image of Seth or Set-on. And at first, Isis, in the pharaonic days, she said, no, I can't do this. And finally, you know, this serpent, he continues to do this, and finally she said, okay, well, let's do it. And they killed Osiris in 13 pieces, and they tried to find all the pieces together again, but they only found 12. And the 13th piece was his phallus, or his sexual organs. They could never find it again. And this is why they created the obelisk. And this is why the number 13, the American flag, has 13 stripes, which has nothing to do with 13 states. No, not at all. And it was because of the number 13 is, and I call this the Horus Matrix. All these wars, they all have the Horus Matrix. The man should die. Now there's a Horus Matrix in the Arabic world, you know. And the Muslim fathers, they really find it very important that they can tell their sons how life, or what life is about. But the New World Order doesn't like this. You know, they're like young boys, you know, to be taught by television and in school, where they say everything is good, homosexuality is good, drugs is good, everything is good, you know. So this is going on, and the Horus Matrix is going on in the Arabic world now. And the obelisk, of course, the 13th part, which could never be found anymore, of Horus, the obelisk, of course, is a phallic symbol. And as it is carved on top, there's a little pyramid on top. That's the symbol of the circumcision. And the circumcision is an alliance with Seth, or Satan, or Satan. It's in America, especially in the Americas and in Canada, most of the men, they're being circumcised, and you cannot be religious or a Christian if you're circumcised, because if you believe in God, you cannot mutilate the God's creation as it was. You cannot just cut around and cut some parts off. You know, this is a blasphemy, and it's. So the circumcision is actually, it's an alliance with Satan, or Satan, who started doing it, and of course the pharaohs traditionally, they only circumcised their slaves as the Jews. That's one of the reasons the Jews are circumcised, because they were their slaves and they mixed with them, and the pharaohs themselves were never circumcised. And it also has their reasons. I made a film about it. About if you punch in circumcision on my channel, Chatzefratz, that's CHATZEFRATZ. I'll explain it to you, because you know, if you have a ejaculation, a man, there's a lot of. I mean, it's for making new life, so it's very powerful, you know. And it will extract, well, you as a martial artist, you should know this, the sublimation of sexual energies. That's one of the main things of a martial warrior, which you should abide by, the sublimation of your energies, and not just spend it, you know, and throw it out.
How to use it properly, and how to channel it into your life. But in martial art practice, obviously they want to try to produce maximum amount of energy output. And but if you look at this even just from the integration of the whole mind, body, spirit philosophy in martial arts, it's just as you said, it's about conserving energy and using energy in a right form that would be the most efficient way.
Yeah, within the martial arts, this is one of the biggest secrets, and Bruce Lee, he wanted to talk about this, and this is one of the main reasons they killed him, because between your sexual organs at the end of it, and between your rectum, there is a point, and if you use this point, you can control your sexual energies in a specific way. It's one of the acupuncture points, the key, or the pharaonic car points. And but a man who's circumcised, you know, he's already in half an erection, because if there's no, you know, a normal healthy man with his foreskin, the only moment where his foreskin is not there anymore is when he's in an erection, you know. And if you, you know, if a circumcised sexual organ is rubbing in the underwear all the time, it doesn't need very much. If you have your foreskin, you've got much more control. So you can see this in the Muslim world. They're all circumcised, and this is one of the reasons they have to cover their women under a ton of clothing. Because if they see 1 square centimeter of naked skin of a leg of a woman, these guys go really crazy. And I can see this also with the American people in the United States. They're very sexual orientated, because if it's rubbing in your pants all the time, without a foreskin, well, it's, you get a hard one, and the sexuality starts much earlier. Before, like in the European culture, a man was more getting active maybe at 16 or 18. It was also the same in the United States before. I don't know much about Canada, but probably the same. But now, since 1967, about 97% of the Americans are getting circumcised. And there we can see the whole sexual, it's all going down the drain. There's a lot of rape, and a boy starts, getting sexually interested at the age of 13 or 12. You read in the newspaper, a 12-year-old boy raped a 12-year-old girl, And these are all things we never read in the newspapers, because like before, the boys and girls, they were not interested in not so much, like before the age of 16 or 18. And that's all because of the circumcision. And that's why the Pharaohs, and a lot of them are doctors and in hospitals, and they say, well, your child has a problem, his foreskin is too tight, well, we have to cut it and get it away. But this is really an alliance with evil. It is.
Well, and also there's a culture that's there. That's embedded in.
Of course, the people who are circumcised.
I was just saying that throughout the media, it's very much a pornographic culture, right? So there's a lot of influence that's there, that is in there subliminally, that a lot of people aren't aware of. Even when you get into looking at subliminal messages through children's television shows and movies and whatnot, but right up to what's right in your face, everywhere you look, everything's about how you look, and with your body images, it's all related to every magazine cover is talking about how to improve your sex life, and yet nothing is there to how to improve being a more loving, compassionate human being, and to really foster a loving, intimate, caring relationship with somebody. It's all superficial. It's all materialist based. And by doing that, would you agree that this is a way that they are able to keep people in subjugation, because of the fact that they're suppressing their natural energy, and they're externalizing them and having them live more in the egoic realms, as opposed to being in the more, I guess, the spiritual realms or the mental realms, where you can cultivate inner power and knowing and a form of direction. Is that I guess, part of the agenda?
Yeah, it's all converging to the same thing. And if a young man, he doesn't have his brain completely developed at the age of 13, and if he starts losing his sperm and ejaculates, by some either way, every time he ejaculates, there's a lot of massive energy which is leaving his sexual organs, of course. And it gets drained through the spinal column out of his head, and this is also one of the reasons. It makes you a bit tired. After you've done it, having sexual intercourse, and of course, when a boy hasn't his brain fully developed at the age of 13, well, he will never develop it anymore, and this will create a very stupid race who's only interested in, well, let's call it fucking, because it's not love, it's fucking. And if you really want to be in a relation with a woman, you have to control your sexual energies, because a woman, she wants love, she wants to, but a man has to say no once in a while, because if you do it too much, you become a rabbit and you become weak, because there's no more sublimation of your male energies. You become very feminine. So if you do it every day with your woman, she won't respect you anymore. So this is also one of the, this is exactly what the pharaohs and those aristocrats, what they want, and this is also the reason when men become more and more feminine, more and more girls get born, and this is what we see. And this is also one of the signs of the end times, where they say both in the Quran and in the Bible that in the end times there will be more women than men, and we see it happening.
And a lot of those texts come out of, going back to the ancient Egyptian periods and whatnot. It's just copies of ancient knowledge and texts kind of thrown together. And so, of course, this is stuff that is replete throughout a lot of the different cultures talk about this time. And, speaking of this time, I wonder if we got about 5 minutes to break here, Sean. I wondered if we could talk briefly about the World War II era. So if people are having trouble tracing the lineage or looking historically all the way back to the time of the pharaohs, we can even just speak briefly about more modern history and what happened with the Nazis and the Templars and, the setting up of the Bank of International Settlements and all of these different things that were going on during World War II that have contributed to what's going on in our world today.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, Mr. Hitler, he was, I found a very rare picture when he was in Zurich, which is the financial capital of Europe and maybe of the world. And especially, for black money, Zurich is the capital of the world financially, and the whole financial elite is in Switzerland, where they stash their money, through tax evasion, and that means the rich ones who do tax evasion, well, they don't pay any more taxes, but taxes have to be paid, and everything has to be paid by the poor people. And this is how poor people get poorer, and rich people get richer. And of course, the rich ones, who have enterprises and factories, of course, they are pure pharaohs, and the pharaohs became the aristocracy, and the aristocracy never paid any taxes. They invented taxes to be paid by us. So nothing really changed. It's still a feudal system, which will get very bad, and it will get worse. So Mr. Hitler, he got financed in Switzerland because Rudolf Hess, there was the second man. Actually, Rudolf Hess, he was born in Egypt, in Alexandria, a true pharaoh. And he was studying in Switzerland at the Polytechnic University of Zurich. And there he made contacts with a Swiss general, Ulrich Wille, who came out of the von Bismarck family. His mother was a von Bismarck. The aristocracy, they're always in it. I mean, if you look at the Second World War from the German side, I mean, they were all von this, von Stauffenberg or von Mansfeld, they were all nobility. And from the English side as well, Churchill, he was born in a castle, in Blenheim Castle. And it was... So he got financed by the Swiss, and this is one of the reasons he never invaded Switzerland. This is also the reason why Mr. Hitler, he never listened to his own generals, because he listened to the Swiss generals who gave the orders throughout the world, the whole war. And the Nazis, I call them the Nazi Templars, because they were the Templars. And this is also why the Nazis, with their SS Ahnenerbe, they were so interested in Templar stuff. They went to the south of France with SS Otto Rahn, who is the Steven Spielberg. He used the character in his Indiana Jones videos, and this was in fact SS Otto Rahn with the same Indiana Jones hat, who was looking for treasures of the Templars. And they went digging in Bugarach. In Bugarach in 2012, they were waiting for the end of the world, which is a very mystic area. I went filming there. I did some very interesting videos, and also filming an ancient pyramid in the south of France, near Nizza, near Nice. And it was all Swiss. And of course, then the SS, if you in Pharaonic, you only write down the consonants, no vocals, just as in Arabic or in Hebrew. So SS, that's the word actually for Isis. So SS, it means Isis. And of course, there's the skull of death on the symbol of the sign of the German Nazi SS. So there's the skull and bones, the symbol of the Freemasons, and the SS.
And the Skull and Bones Society is still alive and well today, and they still operate at, I think, Yale University. But let's hold that thought, Sean. We're going to midpoint break here. Second hour is going to be underway when we get back, and we also are going to have a couple callers call in and ask some questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, second hour coming up. Don't go anywhere. Be back here on Truth Warrior. Second hour underway here on Truth Warrior. I'm your host, David Whitehead. TruthFrequencyRadio.com is the website. And I also invite you to check out the work we are doing here in Canada to bring you some groundbreaking events and information. This year, we'll be doing a continuation of the Modern Knowledge Tour concept, and we've got 3 massive events happening across the country. We've got a couple that are coming up very soon here, and so you can check out all the information about these upcoming events at modernknowledge.ca. First event we have is Disclosure Canada. We're going to be bringing in a variety of different speakers to discuss the truth embargo related to the UFO ET subject, and also the truth embargo relating to all areas of government, really. We're going to be exposing it on a big level. Then we're going to be going to Belfast to film a live stream event with Michael Tessarian, and we're going to be broadcasting that and streaming that live around the world on May 2nd, 2015. And then, of course, we have the second Modern Knowledge Tour, where we're jumping in an RV. We're driving coast to coast across Canada from Halifax all the way to Victoria, British Columbia. We have a huge list of amazing speakers that are going to be involved with that. So again, check out all the information, and modernknowledge.ca is the website. And we're here tonight speaking with Sean Hross from Switzerland, breaking down the Nazi Templars in the last segment there. And I'm going to allow him to continue that point. And we're also joined by my good friend and brother, Charles Denemy from Quebec. And he's a welcome guest back on the show. So actually, let me just go ahead and welcome Charles to the show. Charles, man, thanks for calling in and joining us here in the second hour.
Hey, David. Hey, Sean. Nice to be on. Thank you for having me on. I'm pretty excited, as always.
Well, great to hear your voice. And you're more than welcome. And Sean, it's going to be good. We can get Charles is very, very familiar with your work, and he's got some awesome questions, I'm sure, lined up. So I'm glad we're able to include him. But before we get to that, I wanted to let you finish up what you were speaking about regarding, the whole Nazi Templar connection.
Hello, Charles. Good to hear you, man.
Hey, Sean. Good to hear you.
You speak French, actually. Charles Denomé, c'est vraiment français, non?
Absolument, oui. Aussi amérindien aussi. So it's native as well.
Excuse me, I didn't hear that.
Oh, it's actually it's French, but also it's native as well. It's dénommé means to be nameless, and essentially the natives here. My family were from the Algonquins, which didn't want to be named. We didn't want to go with the whole name thing. So
good for you guys.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Like a non-person, eh?
Like as in what?
Well, today, somebody who doesn't want to belong to the New World Order, he calls himself a non-person. No more throw away your passport. Like dénommé, not a non-person.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So about the Second World War, I made another film which is called Auschwitz, Made in Switzerland. And actually, if you look at the concentration camps, all these bad things going on there, and the historians, they say, everybody says, and Hollywood says there was only one guy who was responsible for all that, and that was Heinrich Himmler. He was the head of the SS. But it's not true. It was not only him. There was another guy. He was the Reichsgesundheitsminister. He was the health minister of Germany, and he was Swiss. They called him. His nickname was the Swiss Sadist, and his name was Obergruppenführer Leonardo Conti, Doctor. And so he was the health minister. So like a guy like Mengele, Dr. Mengele, the angel of death in Auschwitz, he was directly under his orders. And then there was a second guy. He was responsible for the medical side of Auschwitz and all the experiments on people and everything. And there was a second guy. We also call him Hitler's mastermind, and he's the father of eugenics worldwide. And he was Swiss too, and his name was Dr. Ernst Rudin. He survived the war, and he died quietly, and peacefully, and somewhere in the 60s, I think in 1962. And of course, Mr. Himmler, he was responsible for the military side as being the head of the SS. And if you look where his parents come from, his ancestry, well, his father is from a German town called Lindau, which is in Baden-Württemberg, where they have an Alemannic population, just as in Switzerland. And Lindau is at the Lake Bodensee, which is right at the Swiss border. And just next to it, there's another town called Bregenz, in Austria, where Heinrich Himmler's mother is from, in a province which is called Vorarlberg in Austria. So this guy was what we call an ethnic Swiss. And even Dr. Mengele, he was from a place called Gunsberg, which is also very near Switzerland. He was also an ethnic Swiss, where they also speak Alemannic. And next to 10 kilometers away from Dr. Mengele, there was this guy who wrote who edited and published the Der Stürmer, which was the the famous Nazi newspaper. And so how come that there's so many ethnic Swiss around Switzerland and not really in Switzerland? That's because during the 30-Year War, which was also like a world war for Germany and the German people, where 2/3 of the German population, they got murdered and killed, which is about 2/3 of the German population in those days, and they were all murdered by about 20 million Germans. They were murdered by Swiss mercenaries, and their relatives and their friends, they settled down in those areas, like in the south of Germany. Also, it's called Baden-Württemberg, and also a big part of Bavaria. So not everywhere in Bavaria they speak Bavarian, but in half of Bavaria they speak Alemannic, which is the Swiss Germans. They're also Alemannic. And then in France, a place called Alsace, it's also Alemannic, and of course Vorarlberg in Austria, and a part of northern Italy. And it was last year, it was even in the newspapers that they want to create a big Swiss empire today. With all those provinces where those ethnic Swiss live. So last year, I don't have any passport, any documents, and I have no money either. I have no income, and I hitchhiked all the way to Poland through Austria and Czechoslovakia, and I made it to Auschwitz. So when I wanted to go in there, that was last year November. I did some video footage about it, and so when I wanted to go in there, they didn't want to let me in because I had a big backpack with my tent in it on my back, and at the front with my video camera, a small pack with my the things I can easy grab, like my shades and my maps and everything in a small backpack at the front. So they didn't let me in, and they said, well, I could leave my gear somewhere, a little cabin, but I didn't want to leave my stuff with the poles, and I didn't want to leave my stuff at all, because if I would lose it, I would freeze to death. No more tent, no more sleeping bag, and so I didn't go in there. And I thought, I walked around the Auschwitz and Auschwitz-Birkenau, and I thought, I try and skip the fence, like an escape in the inverse way. So I skipped one huge Auschwitz fence, all these electric wires, well, not electrified anymore, and a second one and a third one, and in I was, and there I got arrested. I put the videos on my YouTube channel, and the guy who was the first thing I saw that they have a special Auschwitz police inside. And the guy had a Nazi Templar badge, octagonal from Octagon. And then I knew that it was still the same ones ruling. I mean, the Nazis won the war. They did everything they wanted to do. And with the paper, as we know, with the paperclip operation, they went to the United States and to Argentina. And as the Nazis, they were the Nazi Templars, because the Templars never disappeared. And out of the Templars, actually, who founded Switzerland and the Swiss banks, and if you look at the Swiss flag, red and white, well, it's like a simplified Templars flag. Or if you look at the Swiss Army knife with a Templar shield on it, even. And afterwards, the Templars, they were the banks in Europe. For hundreds of years, they invented the check. They lent money to the kings. So, of course, the famous Templars' treasure went into Switzerland, with which they founded the Swiss banks. And in Auschwitz, this capo, or Auschwitz police, they were still wearing the Nazi Templar octagonal badge. And why is it called octagon? In English, it's octagon, with with an O and then an A and then again an O. But in German, it's both an O and an A. You can write it both ways. But this famous organization is with 3 O's, octagon, because it's in German. But again, in German, you can also write the second letter with an A, like in English. The Templars, they always, if you draw a line around the Templars cross, you get an octagonal form, and the same thing with the Swiss cross. And octagon is also the secret word for Switzerland. And out of the Templars came the Freemasons. So the Swiss Templars, they give the orders worldwide, and the whole worldwide web of Freemasonry, they follow the orders given out of Switzerland. So Switzerland is the base of evil. There's a lot of people talking about Jews or the Jesuits, or as being the enemy of mankind, But nobody talks about Switzerland. And I mean, I'm not religious, so I don't give a rat's ass about any Jews. I don't want any harm to these people, and not to their children either. But I'm not really, they are not God's chosen people or anything, But they are definitely not the ones who are in power. Some of them are. Actually, if you take a guy like Sarkozy, who was the president or the king of France, from his father's side, he's an aristocrat, because he's from a line of Hungarian kings, real kings. And from his mother's side, he is Jewish. His mother was a Greek Jew, and a Jewish woman by the name of Andrei Mala. So this guy he is Jewish and an aristocrat. So what is he? Is he a Jew or is he an aristocrat? Well, let me tell you, long before he feels to be a Jew, Sarkozy, he's an aristocrat. It's the same thing with Prince Charles. Long before he admits being English, he's an aristocrat, or Louis XIV. They all look down on their peoples. And it's the same thing with the Jews. They also have kings and queens, like the King Solomon or King David. And actually they have more pharaohs and aristocrats in their midst, because, they were the slaves with the pharaohs. So it's the same thing, yeah. Are you still there?
Oh, yeah, we're still here. We're just taking all the information in. Charles, I'm going to throw it to you, my friend, for the next question. Why don't you follow up?
Well, just what you were talking about, Sean, with earlier about the Hross matrix, about Isis, Horus, and Seth. I've done a little bit of my own homework there. I've been following you for quite a while about with your videos, and you're talking about the Jesuits and the the Jews, if you look at the Jesuits, their symbol is actually a black sun with IHS right in the middle, which is Isis, Horus, and Set. And so it goes to show you that they're actually being run by, I guess, through Octagon, Switzerland. And also Israel is Isis, Amun-Re, El, Lohim, which is also Isis, Horus, and Seth. And so looking at all these like kind of coordinations together, if you put them together, looking at the Jesuits or the Jews as being the problem and stuff like that, but it goes deeper than that, and it all traces back again to Switzerland, like you always say in your videos. Even here in Canada, CSIS. If you look at CSIS, which is our Canadian Security Information Services, you have SS within it also. You always see the SS is everywhere, and our logo is actually an octagon. The CSIS logo is actually an octagon, and the building is built in the shape of a pyramid. And so, a lot of the things you're sharing, Sean, like it goes really deep, and there's all the symbolism and words and things like that do in fact trace a lot to with a lot about what you're sharing. I just thought I'd share that with you if you weren't aware of it already.
Yeah, of course, I agree with you. IHS is Isis, Horus, and Seth, and it's all related to the Horus matrix, and that's the killing of man. So there can't be any more man after the image of God, if you want, or the creation, or as man used to be. But they're all being created like being an instrument in the New World Order. And then, of course, the Georgia Guidestones will come. That thing that humanity they will only keep a race of slaves, like the 500 million. A few months ago, I went into a Swiss Jesuit church in Solothurn, which is a Catholic canton in Switzerland. I filmed it. I put it on my channel. That was in October, I think. And everywhere in this Jesuit church, I found the symbol of the CIA, and which is in a way also octagon. There's two 4-pointed stars in it. And well, as we know, the Jesuits, they were invented or founded to get rid of the Protestant movement, and it's all related with that 30-year war from 1618 to 1648, which is very important in European history. And it was actually the Dutch who stopped that war, because the Swiss mercenaries for the 30-year war, and also for the Jesuits, they got paid with Maya gold from the Portuguese galleons and Spanish. For the Catholics, they brought it into Europe, and they got all sunk by the Dutch ships. They had small ships with used to the rough North Sea, and they all huge Spanish and Portuguese ships to pieces. And that was the end of the 30-year war, because the mercs couldn't be paid anymore. So these mercs didn't have anything to do anymore in 1648. And then they started to work for the nobility, like in France, and also in Holland again, for the Dutch king. Because apparently the Dutch, they don't really have a military tradition. They're more like in smoking pot, apparently, and those sort of things. And 150,000 Swiss mercenaries, they served in the Dutch army. And then later on, they got shipped to South Africa, because and that's where I came from, where I was born in South Africa. And that was only 4 years after the end of the 30-year war, which ended in 1648. So 1652, South Africa could be founded as a direct result of the end of the 30-year war. So all these Swiss mercenaries, they came to South Africa, and about 1 million people, they got transported during a couple of hundred years with sailing vessels from Amsterdam to Cape Town. And this is where we find today, and in the 70s and the 80s, the notorious South African mercenary, who we find also in the Ukraine today, and in Afghanistan, and in Iraq. They're everywhere. So these mercenaries, they are actually no Boers or South Africans. They are Swiss, and those Swiss always had a mercenary tradition. And it's always related back to Switzerland, always. They are the base of all evil.
Well, and even the guard that is there at the Vatican City, it is the Swiss Guard. And it's interesting that the religion that the Jesuit order and the Vatican are propagating it's not really Christianity at all. They call it that, but it has its origins in ancient Egypt with the ancient Egyptian mythos of Horus and Set and on the whole deal. It's just a rescripting of that. And it's as if they've just, when they talk about old world order, new world order, or old world religion or new world religion, what it is it's just them updating and rescripting a lot of the same distortions of what I think were originally, very, very, they were truthful things that it was a spiritual tradition that maybe was even before Egypt or in the ancient world. You can see it in various forms. And yet they've taken those things, even the symbols themselves, and they've distorted the real meaning of it and used it as a way of bringing about control and blinding people and leading them down the wrong path. And I think it's just interesting that whether you look in history or whether you look at what's going on today, it's just an updated form of what went on before.
Yeah, and Switzerland is so bad. It's the oldest dictatorship in the world. And of course, when the whole financial elite is here and stuffing their money here, you must keep a very special population who don't think too much and who obey the orders and like the Swiss are, and do the banking things and everything. So I'm having a hard time here. Since 4 years, I'm under house arrest. I'm having murder threats by the Swiss police and the Swiss fascist judiciary. And they arrested me with an anti-terrorist squad in 2011 because of my videos and also because I've been writing articles in international newspapers. Like I wrote an article in an Austrian newspaper because there was an Austrian guy. His name was Wolfgang Umvogel in 2010 in October. And he wanted to sell banking CDs because of the tax evasion and the IRS. Then the Swiss Secret Service, they caught him, and in only 2 weeks' time, they suicided him. The man got suicided. And I know how foreign immigrants, people from Africa and how they get tortured in Switzerland. They put people in a cell without oxygen. It's called Code O2T. It's the same with waterboarding, because with waterboarding, you can't breathe, and if the moment you breathe, it's like you grasp for air, but you cannot get enough air, to nourish the blood with enough oxygen. So you're being tortured in every cell of your body. That's there's no blood from the outside, but you're being killed, from the inside out. And that's the same thing they were doing in Switzerland. So this is what they wrote in the biggest Austrian newspaper called the Kronenzeitung, that the man got suicided. So for the biggest newspaper in Austria, that's very rare that they write something down like this, And they also wrote my name. And when the Swissies, when they read it, they sent me an anti-terrorist squad, which came also in the newspaper. I videotaped it and I put it on one of my videos. It's called Arrest Sean Hross on one of my channels. And they put 3 guns on my head, a bandage over my eyes, and handcuffs and foot cuffs and murder threats, just like in a CIA rendition. And so maybe it's a good idea if you people, if you like my videos, please download them and save them or burn DVDs, because chances are quite, chances are big that they're going to kill me. Yeah, I mean, I've got the murder threats, and I cannot go out alone anymore. Sometimes I don't go out of the house for months. My health is very bad, and well, that's Switzerland. It's and I recently made a film about the Prime Minister of France. His name is Manuel Valls. Well, his mother is Swiss and of a very rich family, and his father is of Swiss descent as well, of a Spanish banker's family. So this guy is from a Swiss sleeper cells. And everywhere in the world, they have huge Swiss sleeper cells. Like in the USA, there are 1 million Swiss Americans, and they all go for the key positions, like the mercenaries. They go for octagon, the police. Like if you look at the hat of a New York cop, well, it's octagonal. Or if you look at the badge of an English cop, well, it's octagonal. So this is octagon, the
Let's just do another pause there. Sorry to cut you off again, Sean. We're going to break here. Final break of the show, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back here. Sean Hross. We also got Charles on the line. Don't go anywhere. And a warm welcome back, my good friends. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Truth Warrior. I'm your host, David Whitehead, and tonight I'm speaking to Sean Hross. We're talking about the banking elite, the history of corruption in this country and around the world, and what's really been going on behind the scenes. And I also got Charles Denemy on the line with us, joining us here tonight. And just as we were talking the last segment, guys, I mean, one of the most important things I think for a Canadian audience that might be tuning in here is a little bit of history about our banking in relation to Switzerland, and the fact that back in 1974, we sold our right to print our own money and issue our own currency to the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland. And our country hasn't been able to escape debt ever since. And I just think that that's the same fate of many of the countries, if not all of them, in the world as a result of the financial system. So it seems to be one of the most powerful weapons they have in their arsenal today. It's not necessarily just armies invading territories, although that's also going on. The Templar invasions, the Crusades are always ongoing, especially in the Middle East. But here in the West, the way they deal with us is through the financial banking system. And it's just amazing how we forget our own history and we look at the situation and the economy, and you see this all over the Canadian news. What are we going to do with the jobs? What are we going to do about the economy? All the small businesses are closing down. It was by design. We wanted the small business and the local prosperity to shut down. We want international banks and international corporations that are run out of these big banks in Switzerland to basically be taking over. So the signs are everywhere, and I just thought I'd throw that out there for the fellow Canadians that might be listening in. Also to add there, David, is right now, about Canada, we actually have a lawsuit. We're winning against the Bank of Canada, where we're pretty much going to be able to branch off from the IMF. And just so people know about their history is that Pierre Trudeau is the one that sold us out to the foreign bankers, and now we're talking about electing Justin Trudeau to be the next prime minister, which both him and his father both went to Jesuit schools, Jesuit founded schools here, which is Jean de Brébeuf, Collège Jean de Brébeuf. And so a lot of people are quick to, think that Justin Trudeau is going to save us from a lot of the problems, which I strongly believe that he's our next Obama, which I know Sean's expressed that he actually has Swiss descent, and I've done my research as well, and he actually does. So it just kind of gives you an idea of how deep this goes. Oh yeah, if they get into power, trust me, they were put there. They weren't elected. They were selected for the job, so to speak. That's right. Sean, what do you think about that, man?
Yeah, of course. The Bank of International Settlements, in German, they call it the Bank für internationalen Zahlungsausgleich, and which is a typical Templars bank in the motherland where the Templars founded the banks, and the Bank of International Settlements is the central bank of all the central banks. The other central bank in Switzerland is in Zurich, and I went filming there. It's I put it on my YouTube channel. Actually, the bankers called the police that day. It was quite funny, and so I pushed the guy away. And the whole house in Zurich, the UBS and the central bank in Zurich. From the outside, it's full of reptilians on the walls, carved in the marble. Reptilians all over. It's you should see the footage. Actually, this week there was a guy who visited me, and his name is Christoph Meili. He was here Thursday, a couple of days ago. And he was the watchman in 1997 who found the Nazi documents in the UBS bank in Zurich, and so the Swiss had to pay $2 billion. And he came visit me on Thursday. And concerning the Bank of International Settlements. In America, in 1929, there was Black Tuesday or Black Thursday. There were both, actually. And
now it's Black Friday.
Yeah. And I think there was first Black Tuesday, and then the real Wall Street crash was Black Thursday. And the president in those days was Herbert Hoover. And they waited for him to be president because Herbert Hoover, his real name was Huber, which is a Swiss name. And at the same time, there was Gay Edgar. I call him Gay Edgar Hoover, the director of the FBI. And his name was also Huber, and they look very much alike. So in my video, Swiss Sleeper Agents in USA, I put a comparison, and they look very much the same. And also Eisenhower, he was also a Swiss American as Obama, and General Custer as well, who killed all the Indians. Probably also a member of Octagon. So Herbert Hoover, the president in the days of the Wall Street crash. They stole the savings of honest Americans, and they transferred it to the Bank of International Settlements, who was actually Hitler's bank of Hjalmar Schacht. And with that money of American savings, they financed the Nazi war industry through Switzerland. And the Bank of International Settlements, it's also it's an independent sort of country. It's like the Vatican or in London.
Is it true that there's like a main Masonic lodge in the same vicinity? I think I saw something about this where you had the big bank there, the BIS, and then you had one of the big black Masonic lodges, and then you had another huge, I don't know if it was an insurance company or one of these big companies owned by the Masons or something like that. It's like a little epicenter there.
Yeah, well, there are, in Basel, there are two Bank of International Settlements. They have two big buildings. The old one, which is next to the station, which is that round tower. I filmed it. And then down the road, you pass the Hilton Hotel and all those fancy hotels, of course. About, I don't know, 400 meters maybe, there's the other part. And that's on a place which is called the Place of Ashes, and all the Swiss banks, they are represented there, and all the Swiss, the big Swiss assurance companies as well. And the Place of Ashes, that's where they burned the witches in those days. And next to it, there's a prison, which is called the Waaghof. They put me in there as well. And on the hill, a Waaghof, that's a scales, to weigh someone or something or a witch. So they weighed the women, and then they burned them at the Place of Ashes, where the Bank of International Settlement is, and all the Swiss assurance companies, they're all being represented on that place.
They weighed. Sorry, I just wanted to. It's just interesting to me. So they weighed the women. This was one of their methods of trying to determine if they were practicing as a witch or not, I guess.
Yeah, because a witch apparently doesn't weigh anything, But of course, after 1 month of torture and nothing to eat, you don't weigh anything anymore either, And this was also a Swiss idea to burn all those women, and they were being dragged and tortured by the by the Swiss Guard, of course. They were these mercenaries. They arrested all the women in Europe. And there were two Swiss guys, and they wrote this book, which is called The Witch's Hammer, the Malleus Maleficarum in Latin. And this is the manual how to burn, how to torture women, how to weigh them. And the book was written by two Swiss, one from Basel and one from Mulhouse, which is now in France, but before it belonged to Switzerland, to the Swiss cardinal, or the Swiss bishop of Basel. Well, Basel is called Baal in French. The French call it Baal, like the seat of the devil, in
the Babylonian god or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So it was written by two Swiss inquisitores, Heinrich Kramer and Inquisitores Jacobus Sprenger. So this too was a Swiss idea, and so was the Ku Klux Klan actually. And the Ku Klux Klan apparently was founded by Albert Pike. But there was a guy much more important behind Albert Pike, and I made a video about it as well. His name was Phileas Walder. And this guy really believed that that the Antichrist was from out of his lineage, Phileas Walder. So it's just, considering Albert Pike, they call him his lieutenant, his second lieutenant, Phileas Walder. But it's the same as today, like Obama and all those guys who come in the newspapers and whose pictures we see. They are not the real guys who are, the real ones in power. They're the ones you never see their faces. And that was the same with Albert Pike. Everybody knew him. He was a general. He was in the newspaper writing his book and telling his stories about the three world wars and the third one coming up now. But this guy, Phileas Walder, he was very, very dangerous. And he was, of course, he was Swiss. And the KKK, the Swiss have, if you look at the symbol of the Ku Klux Klan, it's a red underground with a white Swiss flag in it. It's like the Swiss flag. And it says on the horizontal KKK. And the French, they have liberté, égalité, fraternité, but the Swiss, officially in Swiss Parliament in Bern, they have the KKK, which stands for consensus, concordance, and a compromise, which is in German is written with a K. And so what is this? We don't understand this in English, really, Ku Klux. Well, I mean, what does it mean? A clan we understand. Yeah, that's a tribe, like an Indian tribe or an African tribe or a Celtic tribe, a Germanic tribe. So Ku Klux, what does it mean? Well, I tell you what it means. The word "coup" is from the German word "a coup," but they took away the H, to camouflage it. And in Switzerland, every cow has a bell around her neck, and that's very Machiavellic, and it's very bad for the animal. But the farmer knows at any moment, where is my cow and what's she doing? In other words, where's the damn nigger and what's she doing? Excuse me the expression, because my black brothers, because I don't think like this. But this is the way the Swissies think, yeah? And Klux is from the German word Glocke, which means the bells. Also like the French word les cloches, the bells. So the cowbell clan. So what is this cowbell clan? Well, so this is the Swiss cowbell clan. It's total control. It's New World Order. And of course, it was Phileas Walder, the Swiss, who brought these ideas to Albert Pike. And I fear a guy like Alex Jones, well, he's into the same thing. I heard him saying so many times, I want to have a Swiss state and I dream of Switzerland and Switzerland is good. Well, he's a Swiss sleeper agent, And this is why he didn't like Bill Cooper very much. Though Bill Cooper, he was being financed by Swiss America trading. And but of course, like with the mafia, and the Swiss is the biggest mafia in the world, they first they take your finger, and then they'll take your hand. And when Bill Cooper, he resisted, he said, no, I'm not going to do that for you anymore. Then they had him killed by Octagon, the police. The police killed him, and And in fact, 1/3 of the American police, they're using Swiss weapons, the Zeke. And in France, 100%. All the policemen, they're using Swiss weapons. As if America or France, nuclear states, they couldn't make themselves a tiny pistol anymore, because Octagon of the Nazi templates from Switzerland on all key positions in France and in Canada, in the US, they want to shoot with Swiss pistols. So they're using the Swiss Zeke pistol all over the world.
Wow, that's really interesting. Charles,
Yeah.
do you have any questions popping in your head as he's talking there, man?
Well, just to relate again to, he's talking about the confederacies and Phileas Waldo. Canada, like you're saying about the relations, is we actually are a confederacy. We were based on a confederacy, and also we have 10 provinces and 3 territories, which comes up to 13, like you're talking about Osiris. So, the 13 parts of Osiris that were kind of spread out there. So it just goes to show you, like Canada, we do actually have quite a bit of connections through Switzerland. There's a lot of Swiss, the population here has a lot of Swiss descent here, especially in Quebec, which we use the pharaonic, the lotus of the River Nile, the Fleur de Lys, to show again Isis, Horus, and Set. So, other things you're sharing, Sean, I just want to add to what you're sharing with the world. I think you're doing a great job. You've done quite a bit of good research. I'm doing my own research on my end to actually, see exactly what you're saying is true. And, you're pointing out a lot of good stuff. I think, you are actually part of something big here, brother. So I just want to add
Thank
that
you,
to
Charles.
you. Yeah, man.
Merci beaucoup, Charles. I want to change this world. I want peace and justice. I want all these wars and the horrors matrix to stop. So if there are any warriors over there, well, come and contact me. We have to organize and do something. And it should be the older people, that should do something. Because in all those wars and in the horrors matrix, it's always the young generations, that have to take it, or the middle generations, like 17 or 18-year-old kids that have to die in a fodder cannon in some sort of a war. And the older people, they stay behind and see their children die, and then they're 40 or 50 and can't have any more children. So they whack, at the same time, they whack 2 generations or 3 instead of 1, But we as mammals, a mammal defends his children or his offspring with his life. So it should be in our nature. It should be the older ones going to war and not the young ones. So we older ones. I mean, I'm 52. We should defend ourselves and our offspring and our children. And it shouldn't be the children go to war, but it should be us. So if there's any warriors out there, I've been in a couple of wars. So let's team up, eh?
It's true, and that's what I've been trying to do, putting that call out there to all the people out there that care about freedom. They care about finding out the truth about what's really going on so that we can put an end to it. And I think that it was a great quote that you said earlier, Sean, that no more wars. Let's fight the war within, or the enemy within. You said, let's fight the enemy within. And I think that goes on, I guess, the whole global stage as to what's happening in the world with all these things we're talking about, but also on an internal level. There's that battle of the wolves that's going on within each of us. And a lot of it has to do with a lot of misinformation and programming that we've been subjected to throughout our lives. And so it's important to get on the path of seeking knowledge and seeking the truth and having an open mind. And in martial arts, there's that saying, especially from people like Bruce Lee, who were saying, don't commit yourself to one style. Don't try to become narrow-minded and say, there's only one truth. Be open and really be a seeker. And when you're in that mindset, you're going to find the truth. It's inevitable, So I think that this is the time where we're waking up on individual levels and also on a collective level. So I definitely support what you're saying there, Sean.
Well, earlier you guys were talking about soldier versus warrior. I read your thing, Sean, and it really struck a chord with me. Just to add something in there, is my own etymology of the word, as I look at it as a soul dyer, which is the dying of the soul is where you give up your free will, which comes from your soul, from your essence, your emotions, your essence in motion, your soul is dying. So how can you be a warrior for truth? How can you be a warrior for justice and love and all these things when you don't even know yourself? You've given it up to other people that don't have your good intentions, So that's why I look at a soldier as a soul dyer, a soul slowly dying away in, violence and hatred and all that nonsense. So.
Yeah, interesting. Very well. Good thinking, man. And actually, about those inner wolves, the wolf of hatred and the wolf of love, I think there should be more hatred, because hatred can be love. I feel hatred for this evil, and if you feel hatred for evil, that's pure love. But it's another energy than love. Love is like a woman. It's like taking it in, but hatred for love, that's more like an active thing for man. So it should be more. We should reactivate the wolf of hatred, but then hatred against evil, and instead of just love, more hatred, love.
Yeah, not from a place of ignorance, which is what we see when we think of hatred of someone just because they're from another race or from another belief system, or just hatred in general, where it's coming from the ego. It's coming from a place of being ignorant of what the truth is. What you're talking about, I like to call, having the warrior spirit. The warrior spirit. I work in a martial arts school, and I try to explain this to parents. They often are worried that because I'm training them in a martial art discipline, that they're going to become violent and they're going to go out and start fights at school and get into all these types of violent altercations. Whereas I'm saying, no, they're cultivating the warrior spirit. They need confidence. They need to know who they are. And that way they're going to have the confidence to not go in and get involved in those situations. But if something happens, if there is an adversary coming at you, or someone trying to breach natural law and take your free will, well, then you need to have the warrior spirit to stand your ground and say no. And I also find it interesting that word no, it sounds the same whether you say it N-O or K-N-O-W, whether you're knowing something or you know the power of when it is that we have to put our line in the sand and say no to what's coming forward. And I really think that this whole warrior mindset and this philosophy, a lot of it hasn't been shared with the world. A lot of it has been suppressed. What we see out in the media about these things is misinformation. And so I think it's important we bring that forward, but at the same time, think about the solutions as to what we can do once we cultivate that warrior spirit.
Yeah, that's also one of the main aspects of the Hross Matrix. I mean, they have analyzed our minds and everything of mankind. These Ari born out of the sun. The aristocracy, the pharaohs, and so there was no more transcendence. From a father to a son. They broke the line. So there's so many, kids who want to be a man, and then they see these Hollywood films, and the only way to be a man, is like go in the army and then you're a man. And it's all analyzed, psychologically. So before, that there were the elders, like with the American natives or the Germanic tribes or the Celtic tribes. But because of the Hross Matrix and all those wars, there has been a cut, like the elders giving the information to the young ones. And this is one of the main goals of the Sisters of Isis and the Hross Matrix under Sethon or Seton. And of course they know in the evolution of a young man becoming a man, he knows that there's something lacking and he's missing something. And then the society or the evil ones, they have the answer ready, like the army or like in a Hollywood picture, and go and serve in the army, become a man, or But there has been a cut, and it has been done on purpose by the Hross Matrix.
Absolutely. Well, our time is winding down here, gentlemen. It seems to fly when we're talking about Nazi Pharaonic Templars. And so we're going to have you back on again in the future, Sean. I think the work you're doing is exceptional, and I hope your situation there improves regarding the fact that you're kind of in lockdown. And I really hope that that you have the protection around you, which I know you do, to keep doing this. And I think we can do our best here to get the message out, get your videos out to as many people as possible so they can do their own research. And I just want to thank you so much for taking this time with me tonight.
Thank you, Dave. It was good hearing you. And all my videos, it's my present to mankind. You can all use it, copy it, and download it. It's my present to you all for a better world.
We appreciate that. And sorry to cut you off there, Sean, but I just also want to say goodbye and thank you to Charles. Charles, thanks for joining in. I also want to have you back on again as well, because I know you've got some new information that you've been looking into. I want to get into it more with you when time permits. So thanks for joining us also tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure, David. Thank you for having me. It's always fun. I like talking with you. You're a pretty inspirational guy.
Oh, hey, well, I think we're all on the same page here, gentlemen, where we're all trying to do our work and bring forward the information and the passion that we have to try to contribute to this time. I salute you both, and I salute anybody that's listening, that, you know, if you have something to share, or you have a talent, or you know someone that you think you can get on the record to share some vital information, whatever it might be, find out what it is that you can do to contribute to bringing forward this information and this energy at this time. I think that in some senses, even though things seem dark, this is the most exciting time to be alive. This is our chance. We can spread this information. I'm glad we have the means by which we can spread information and continue this conversation. And so I'm just honored to be a part of that. And with that being said, the time is ticking down. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in tonight on Truth Warrior. It was a pleasure and honor as usual. And we'll be back here next Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Signing off for tonight. Have a great one, guys.